Fanfic Corner, presented by Jennifer. Dragon Mating Rituals. Ocean. The sea felt so alive today, almost as if it were cheering him on as he swam over the reef. He stopped by a patch of seaweed for a snack, then continued on to the meeting point. He knew he'd arrived when he saw a collection of ocean dragons and dragonesses gathered around a large coral arch. The clan's leader sat atop it. Flicking his tail, the male went over to some of his friends and asked them who they were going for today. Fortunately, none of them said Atlanta. He would hate to be beaten by or to be a friend over her. They glanced over at the arch where the matriarch was talking to the females, all of them listening carefully to her advice, before each were given a long ribbon of various colors that they tied to each other's tails. After, they swam around in a circle to get used to the feeling. Glancing at the waiting males, the females moved to stand in front of the arch. The matriarch nodded, then roared out, the females going through and splitting up. The ribbons flicked behind them as they swam. The male kept a close eye on which way Atlanta went as they waited for the alpha to sound the start for them. Once it came, the hunt was on, the males going different directions to catch the female they desired. But they had such a head start, they had to utilize their underwater tracking to find them. The male swam in the direction he'd seen Atlanta go, but soon had to look carefully at the reef for signs of which way she'd gone. A disturbed seaweed gave him a clue, and he hurried to follow the trail, working his way around. Sometimes he saw the others in their chases, but he didn't see any females. The tricky creatures could be anywhere. He swam around for a while, thinking about his target. The longer he waited, the greater chances of someone else finding and catching her. As he thought about Atlanta, an idea came to mind. He swam as fast as his fins could take him towards the cave from his childhood. After checking to make sure no one was watching, he swam inside and soon remembered the last time he had been there with his old friend. It was still filled with the most beautiful glowing plants he'd ever seen, but as he glided carefully past them, he heard a giggle. "So, you found me." He smiled, turning to her. "Atlanta." "Figured you would be the only one to look for me here," the pearly white dragoness hummed, watching him from the back of the cave. "So, I found you. Do I still have to chase you?" "It is tradition." She grinned, then swam past, blowing bubbles in his face to disorient him. The dragoness laughed while she swam right past him and out of the cave. The male coughed from the air pockets, then turned, racing out after her and reaching out for the ribbon on her tail. She flipped and twisted to try and avoid him, but eventually it was in his claws. Sensing it was taken, the female swam back to him and nuzzled his cheek. "Guess you kept your promise. I thought you were kidding that you would be my mate. I mean, we were only hatchlings." "Yeah, maybe, but I've been in love with you since, so I was determined to keep my promise, and now I have." He smiled and then nuzzled her back, beginning to head back to the coral arch where some of the other couples had already returned. The males smiled as he passed the ribbon back to the matriarch with a bow of their heads. The elfin nodded as he stood beside his mate. "You are bounded by water."